Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is March 10th, 2022. Thank you so much for joining me to discover the truth beneath the surface. I really do appreciate everybody out there in the audience taking the time to listen. And tonight, as I've been previewing for several days, I've been very excited about my second interview with Kerry Cassidy. She's joining us tonight, so very excited to get into a whole wide variety of topics. We had kind of a brief warm-up conversation, so I'm sure this is going to be an interesting interview. So thank you so much, Kerry, for joining us again. It's an honor to welcome you back.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into it. You were telling me that you had some pretty grave concerns about the situation that's unfolding in Ukraine because of the deep state and really they're back against the wall. So I was wondering if you could, maybe we could start off with your comments on that and see where we go from there.
Sure. Well, I have to say that I'm very concerned. I've been really looking at the news everywhere. And just to remind people, I have, a Telegram channel and I post stuff to it really on the hour, every day, sometimes in 4 a.m. And so I'm really posting a lot of stuff today. If you want to go over there and take a look later. But basically, things are really ramping up. And as far as I can tell, if you just look at the scenario and you kind of stand back, you can see that the deep state has no vested interest in shutting this war down. They want war. In fact, they need war. And I think they want it to escalate. And the bioweapons issue is now reaching even mainstream. And I forget her name, but this woman who works in the Biden administration even came forward and said the labs there are some labs, but she said they were bio research labs, was her equivocation. But the bottom line is everyone more and more is realizing that the US has actually, they started out in Veterans Today showing it on a map and saying 11. Now we know there's 30. Okay, so that's that actual number. And then there could be even more than that. And that's not even saying anything about what's going on underground. Mm-hmm. And the idea is also that they've been using the Ukrainian people and even the soldiers for experimentation. And again, these are all those labs, if I understand it correctly, are owned by the US and run by the US. And Alex Jones, for one thing, if you haven't seen his broadcast on this issue, he's shown you some documents where the deals that were made going back years with the US, between the US and Ukraine, basically establishing the reality of these labs. Mm-hmm. And there was some issue also coming forward saying that they were experimenting on possibly releasing something along the lines of COVID or worse, that Putin is saying that they were going to be targeting Slavic people. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to say, and I know that Gene Decode is on the same page with me on this, that they have been targeting with bioweapons populations according to bloodlines now for years, maybe even 50 years, but you could go back 20 years if you want to be conservative. So these bioweapon labs, including COVID, by the way, I have whistleblower testimony from someone deep in the deep state who has told me that back, even a year ago, that they had 200 versions of COVID to target certain bloodlines, certain population groups. And they always do that. I mean, they've been doing that forever. So this is nothing new, but it's apparently the whole world is naive about this, except for people in secret government and obviously militaries and so on. So it's very important that people understand what we're fighting. The other thing is that this woman who was in the Biden administration said, oh, yes, there are these bio research labs, and now we're concerned that the Russians are going to go in and get, the bioweapons. Now, go back to Iraq and look at that situation and realize that once they have unearthed this is the reality that can blow this whole thing sky high, because that's why they took down Saddam Hussein, ostensibly. Okay. There were other reasons actually having to do with the Anunnaki.
The portals, right?
He was allowing them to come through the portal. Yes. And that's why they decimated. What they do is they decimate the building, like in Iraq, they decimated the building on top where the museum was, and a bunch of statues that didn't really matter. And then they take the real loot and they take it underground into a maglev train, and then they just transport it to wherever they want to, hide it. So this is going to be the same exact thing with these bioweapons labs. Never
you think the white hats are going to take the bioweapons, and they're not intending on destroying them necessarily? I think I heard you mention that.
Yes,
but
they're not.
Perhaps use them for what we would hope for the greater good. I don't know what they would do with them, but
well,
what are your thoughts on that?
You have to understand that there's this philosophy that drives militaries, and militaries say, if you've got something, we want that plus better, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter that it's a weapon. It's that's what they want. They're not going to like trash it because they want to counter it. So supposedly, even ostensibly, when they go at the bioweapons treaties to establish these labs, is supposed to be as a preventative to bioweapons. But in order to prevent a bioweapon, they build one to see how it works, to experiment with it, and then, in theory, if it ever shows up, then they know what to do. But on the other hand, they also can use it. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword. It's always a double-edged sword. So what I think it's so important that people realize that we are really on the verge of something huge right here. Now, I know that Juan, in his last 107, in his last update with Nino, he just did a new one recently, like yesterday or last night, I guess it was.
Yeah, I've only seen a few minutes of that one, to be honest.
Okay, but that one was about them basically persecuting. It had to do with the voter fraud and all of that. So it was totally centered on voter fraud, nothing to do with Ukraine in that one.
Okay.
But the one before that, he, at the end of his sort of statements, he made a statement, a provocative statement saying that, and I think he narrowed it down to the next 3 weeks, saying that there was going to be basically some reveal, some earth-shaking something, whether he didn't specifically, as far as I remember, say arrest. He said something is going to happen or come forward that's going to shock the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, in theory, that hasn't happened yet. So the bioweapons, I assume it's not the bioweapons, because that was already known and coming out in the news when he made that statement. So you have to look at it, and say, well, what can that be? But whenever, like if you go back to, I think it was August and September, when they were going to release the McAfee information that would reveal the pedophilia, how the depth of it in our government, in the US and so on. When that was supposed to come out, it kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. But in the midst of that is when the building in Florida was decimated, a la 9/11.
That's right.
And just.
Well, looks like you kind of froze up there for a minute. Can you hear me, Kerry?
Counters it.
Okay, you kind of broke up there for a minute. I missed about the last 10 seconds, I think.
Okay. When the white hats are going to do something, bring something forward, a piece of truth, supposedly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is when the side will then act to prevent and distract. Okay. Now, I believe behind the scenes, what happens is, because in my view, I would say, well, why do you come forward and say something's going to happen? And then these psychos will do something to prevent it, right?
Mm.
because they know you're going to do whatever you're going to do. But I think what they do is they use it as a negotiating tool to say, we're going to do this. And then if you don't do that, then we will, then they'll make a deal. That's kind of how I think it plays out behind the scenes. So this game is constantly a game of cat and mouse, if you want to call it that. It's really high stakes at the moment because we have a situation in Ukraine where, very interesting, there's one video that just came out a day or two ago in which they actually showed these colors, yellow and blue. Did you see that? In which COVID was advertised, everything to do with COVID and all the signs and all this nonsense, was, if you look at the color scheme, it was this certain color of yellow and blue.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Maybe I can find it while we're on the show here if you want me to. It's on my Telegram channel. But at any rate, so what happens is it's a total mind control thing. So now with Ukraine, they're coming out with the same yellow-blue, thing in supporting Ukraine, making Russia the bad guy, making Putin the bad guy. It's all the yellow-blue. So the exact same division in our country, it seems to me, is dividing along those exact same lines as COVID, which is typically speaking, not exactly, but typically the Democrats, the yellow and blue, the Democrats on that side of the spectrum are trying to make Putin the bad guy. They're not seeing any of the truth about what's really coming on. And so they're going to paint Russia as the bad guy, as the aggressor, as this country like Iraq that has to be stopped. And you know what happened then, right? Mm-hmm. So we're at a very interesting juncture right now, if you think about it, because we are so split. Back in the day of the Iraq war, et cetera, when CNN came to the fore and they just shock and awe and all the nonsense, people were fully fully mind controlled, I guess you might say. Oh, yeah. Most people, they fell for the nonsense. Okay. So there wasn't a split in the country like there is now. Now there is a pronounced split, and it has to do with, the Trumpers really versus the people who have no clue. So, yeah. I mean, no, seriously, this is.
It's the truth. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I assume you would. But the thing that I'm trying to say about this is how very dangerous this split is in the face of what is very closely, very quickly escalating right in front of our faces into a world war. Now, there's a headline. I'm sorry. It's just like.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then I'll definitely stop, in a minute.
No, go ahead.
I just want to roll out a couple of things. Absolutely. There's another headline that I put on my Telegram, which is insane. I can't even believe anyone would believe this, but it's a headline from California.
It's growing like massively. I just noticed it just went up like 10,000 subscribers seemingly overnight. But all right, so keep going.
There's a headline today saying that California is on standby. Our militia, not our militia, what do they call these people? I can get the article. It's, it's a form of the military. It's part of the military, right? So the California National Guard, I think it is. Mm-hmm. California National Guard is on standby for Ukraine.
What?
Now, like, what the fuck is that? And then if you read the article, you see that there had been something set up. And when you look at our governor, I mean, this is just like, the guy is like Nazi incarnate, right?
Really so, is. I mean, it's like American Psycho. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. He's just, he like so far, to the
That's what Alex Jones refers to him as. Like, he's like the American Psycho character. I mean, he looks just like him.
It's how he acts and how he thinks that's so dangerous, not Absolutely. How he looks. But I appreciate that. But my point is that the National Guard in California, like out of the blue, our state is suddenly, they've been told to be ready to go serve in Ukraine. I mean, California, like by itself, I mean, this is just like, it's just insanity.
Is there any legal mechanism where that would ever happen?
Well,
can make that happen?
apparently, yes, because this has to do with the NATO relationship to Ukraine, right?
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, quote unquote, let's go back to the Iraq War again, weapons of mass destruction. What have they found? Bioweapons labs.
Mhm.
Those bioweapons belong to us, okay? They don't belong to Ukraine and they don't belong to Russia, but they think in the hands of Russians, if Russia is the enemy, blah, blah, blah. So you can see where the rationale is going to go. This is what they're building. They're building a case, you understand, for a world war that would begin there. And of course, doing the oil shortages and getting people angry over that in America,
Now,
right?
do you view this as a Cuban Missile Crisis scenario that Juan talks about?
Well, yeah, it's an ongoing Cuban, yes, but it's taking a while to kind of percolate. I kind of thought maybe I'm wrong because I was really, really young during the Cuban, I think I was alive, but the Cuban Missile Crisis, you know, and I thought that happened really quickly, like it came to a head very quickly. This is like, and yeah, again, I just urge people to go back in their memories to how they took down Saddam Hussein, how they got us into a war, how they built a case, you know, how important it was to get Britain on board so that Britain had to agree. And then, you know, there's actually, I was just watching a movie. There's a really good movie out there. Can't remember the name of it, but I don't, was it Natalie Portman? Somebody in, maybe not Natalie Portman. No, I know it was, oh, it's another actress. Anyway, God, what's her name? Okay, so, but whatever. It's a very excellent movie. And it actually is about how they faked and lied and spied on UN delegates in order to convince Britain that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, so they would join the war effort.
Mm.
So the amount of deception that goes on around war, I guess they're saying, you know, this is being bandied about, you know, the first casualty of war is truth.
For sure.
We haven't, you know, the war has barely begun. Now I'm looking at everything out there, and I have to say that there is tons of evidence that a lot of what's being done in Ukraine is orchestrated. It's orchestrated in order to create a division, to create the idea that Putin is attacking. And then when you look into the situation, like, you know, they said they were going to hold open corridors for refugees to leave, right?
Right.
And then if you read this one article that just came out that, again, I posted on my Telegram from, you know, someone basically saying what they did was they shut them down. The Ukrainians shut them down. They're not allowing Ukrainians, young men between the ages of, I don't know, 18 and 60 to leave the country.
I heard they were actually shooting at civilian vehicles trying to flee.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, there's several testimonies coming out of Ukraine to this effect. So you have to understand how Zelensky is playing, he's orchestrating this, and they're saying that they went in and they found out that a lot of what's going on there are movie sets, things that are set up with lights and cameras and you know, people, crew members, and they're building, again, it's building a case in the media. So Zelensky, as an actor, someone who's been in the media world for, God, maybe the last 20 years of his life, he's very familiar with how important the media is, the perception, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to understand how the case is being laid. It's insane. I'm just saying that we are very close. Now we know.
Now, do you think this is being engineered by the White Hats, Kerry? Do you think this is as
no,
one
I don't
imply, or no?
I don't think it's being engineered by the White Hats. Of course not. But what they are doing is they're taking a narrative. They're taking a sort of a plan See, okay, you have to look at why did Putin go in the first place to escalate things and actually enter Ukraine? He was provoked by NATO directly.
Right, for about 8 years.
At least that too, but also quite recently, there were certain maneuvers, including Zelensky provoking him. Now, Zelensky is a puppet of the New World Order, no doubt about it. And, you know, super wealthy. He just, you can check off all the boxes, right? So he plays a pivotal role here in poking the tiger, which is Russia, right? And creating a situation in which, you know, it's kind of like damsel in distress kind of thing. Okay. And he even does the transvestite thing from what I understand, but whatever.
Yeah. Gene played that.
Want to put these countries into that. What we've got is a fake screaming, you know, damsel, and NATO comes in like the big strong man to come protect her against Russia. And then then you have a world war. You have a recipe for a world war. So on top of that, the sort of brilliant thing, and the thing that the White Hats probably knew all along, and that Trump and Putin had to be, in essence, had planned ahead of time, because all of this stuff goes back. It's not like it was not something that was in the wind, probably even for a few years. It's even said that Ukraine has nuclear weapons, that residue left over from, I don't know, the World War II, whatever it is. They have residue stuff. They have munitions. They even Trump sent them military stuff. So this kind of threat on the borders of Russia is like a natural. No one has to be a rocket scientist or even a political scientist to know that if you put, you know, this stuff on the borders of Russia, that Putin is going to go, you know, going to basically go crazy. So there's a constant building, and I think that in a sense, what the White Hats do is they're not provoking the war, but they are provoking the release of the information surrounding the existence of the bioweapons labs that is supposed to come to the fore, and that they have probably a very clear-cut deal and are working with Putin, and even in underground bases and so on, to get the bioweapons out of there, not to get them to Russia. Now, there may be some, I don't know, you know, deal going on between Russia and the White Hats along these lines. But part of my concern here is that while Juan and other pundits out there that are to some degree representing the, you know, us, what we could, the White Hats, right? They're not couching any of this in the real language of what's really happening to defend and to expose this situation sufficiently. So too much of the news, as always, is full of lies. And the people are going to get caught in the middle. They think, oh, you know, I support Ukraine, these poor people, you know, and I don't want war, and I don't want them to kill Ukrainians, you know, I mean, of course not.
Sure.
But what are you going to do? How, I mean, you couldn't, if you're cleaning out the deep state and you're going into underground bases and child trafficking and the drugs and the gun running and you name it in Ukraine is notorious. And they have a Nazi past that's very well known. And the neo-Nazis are everywhere there, apparently. And they even have like parades and all kind of crap, you know, going back to the time of the Nazis. So there is a staunch neo-Nazi bent, even perhaps in their military, okay, if not in their people. So again, it's primed, okay, it's primed to be a tool in this escalation. And of course, behind this whole scenario is Iran and China and eventually world war, okay?
Yes.
So that's this is not just some isolated little country that is, going to finish, this little escalation and then shut it all down and then everything's quiet again. That's not actually what they have in mind, as far as I can tell. Now you can ask me questions. I just wanted to.
Oh, no, you laid out a bunch of great stuff.
I'm just concerned that people, I don't hear anybody looking at this situation as how it has now escalated to a whole nother level than it was, let's say, a week ago.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of folks out there probably want to believe that it's the near-death experience that we've been kind of promised through this whole meat grinder that we're going through. But to look at it, I think in a very sober way, like you are. I mean, let me ask you this: if it does end up going that route, and we do end up spiraling into war, I mean, my number one concern is that could happen, and really that it probably would not be just simply a conventional war. That if it's a real thing, real war, that Putin is threatened with nukes on his doorsteps, that he would probably use nukes. If it really went in that direction, it would seem to me that the White Hats really weren't in control, and weren't kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. It seems to me like you kind of see it as almost a hybrid sort of a situation where they're coordinating, but they're not necessarily engineering the situation, but more trying to steer it in a certain way. Is that an accurate way to say it? Or no?
I think that we have we're coming at this from two different angles. My angle is that you've got an enemy that's worldwide, that is satanic, that goes back in history, and that is basically what is our enemy on earth. And it's not, like I said in a recent interview, it's not just the Khazarians, or what ostensibly is like centered in old Khazarian part of Ukraine, or the Nazis in Germany. These are not isolated. Okay. The Vatican is involved, the reptilians underneath the Vatican that orchestrate what goes on. The New World Order is a very well-oiled, ancient machine that now has AI, et cetera, some very, very sophisticated weaponry that escalates the game. Yes, the good guys probably have the same thing. So in a certain sense, they're at a draw. But there's no doubt whatsoever that in my view, that the White Hats are fighting against a age-old enemy. Therefore, they're not setting up the game. The game existed when they emerged, which is around the time of, at least that we're most aware of, in the coup with the death of JFK. Okay, and why he has a Q around his grave, and it goes on from there. So I don't see them in the driver's seat, but I do see that they have opportunity horizons with certain actions that the deep state takes to actually switch it around into a certain kind of a narrative. And part of their hobbled, in a sense, they're hobbled. If it's kind of like a horse that's hobbled. And that's the mainstream media. Okay. And that the fact that for many years, the mind control and the media have run the engine. If you think of this as an engine going forward, or a river, or whatever, its direction has been dictated by these Satanists. And this is not new. The enemy doesn't change. The enemy is actually the same every time. So the White Hats have to kind of have devised their plan with that in mind. They knew what they were up against. They made a plan. That plan, they strategize with generals, et cetera, et cetera. But in anything that goes on in life and humanity and so on, there are elements of surprise. There are switch ups that can happen, right? Because on the one hand, they're making a plan, but on the other hand, the dark side is making a plan, right? And every time they do something, the dark side does something. It's kind of a constant, if you want to call it a tennis match or whatever you want to call it, chess game, as it's usually referred to. That's very accurate. I do believe we're going to win in the end. I believe that the days of the cabal are numbered, and I think we have a lot of evidence of that. I think the cleaning out and exposing of the pedophilia is a key piece. By the way, just bringing this up, I hope people that were paying attention to Juan for the past 2 years or whatever know that they haven't come forward with the even this very tame movie on pedophilia.
The Sound of Freedom movie, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be released. Okay, hello, where is it? Even that was, in my view, maybe too little, too late. But that's my point of view. It's a good movie. I encourage them to release it, please. But as long as this stuff seems like a figment of somebody's imagination, the lies can prevail, because the mainstream body of people out there, even I had somebody write to me from Malta today saying, she's fully aware that, Putin is not the bad guy. She said, but everyone around her is attacking her. So it's not, we're not just having a problem here in the United States. It's a problem with perception worldwide, still in part because the media worldwide is run by the cabal. That's a fact. And it's mind control. And the blue, yellow thing I was just telling you about is a perfect example. And the fact that they roped every single country into playing this COVID hoax game is another perfect example of it. Now we've got another rollout, and now the lines are already dividing, and these people are going down the same path they went with COVID. Okay, deaf, dumb, and blind. And they're going to be victims. So
it seems to me very much like you're asserting that the cabal is still very much, in power, in very much a threat. And this is certainly far from over. And that's very different from what a lot of people out there are saying.
I'm not one of those people.
Who kind of will lead people to believe, and, have persuaded me even that, we're kind of witnessing largely a pantomime of events rather than an unfolding of things in real time. And I guess my question was, I think last time we spoke, you had agreed that, there were certain people who were watching on TV that aren't the real people, like Biden, for example. Is that your general viewpoint? So where are these people? If in your view, do you think they're in Gitmo? Do you think they're dead? Do you think?
Well, I think Biden's dead.
I know you don't believe that the military tribunals have taken place. So where,
I don't actually go along those kinds of lines where it's all black or it's all white. As far as I'm concerned, there's a reason why they've taken control of Gitmo. And Juan has repeatedly stated that, come over and sort of thrown out this challenge. If you don't think we're in control, just try taking it from us. That was one of his most overt statements, indicating there is a real out and out war going on that involves, sort of taking territory. One of those areas of war is within our military itself. Our military is divided. So if there are tribunals going on, then some people think that, okay, let's see, Tom Hanks has been killed and he's back out acting in movies. So any logical person will say, well, what the hell is that? Right. Well, that's a clone. But no one even
CGI
uses the word,
and all types of stuff.
But no one uses the word clone. They don't use the word, alien or reptilian or clone. See, part of the problem we're having here is that, in a sense, the white hats are trying to fight a war with one hand tied behind their back. Okay, they never come forward with the whole truth that would be very persuasive. You know what I mean? And this is my point of view, of course. In other words, it's like a no-brainer that these places are full of Nazis. We've known it forever, there's incredible documented evidence. It's like the Dominion servers. Juan just spent a whole, hour talking to Nino about the Dominion servers and how this woman is, took a photo, she took a copy of it. She didn't interfere with it, but now they threw her in jail, and she's what they call a golden mom, whatever that is, of a Navy SEAL who died in the, who serves us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she has a special standing, and they still threw her in jail. And
Wow.
she, it's incredible. And she's running for office in Colorado. I mean, you got to understand how if you're in the media, and yes, okay, Truth Social, okay, has started. Well, you can't put it on your desktop. It's still not ready for that. And God knows,
Are you
I don't
actually on there yet?
understand. What?
Are you on there yet? Because
I've
I'm
got
still on the
two
wait list.
accounts.
I'm like in 180,000.
I tried to create 2 accounts, and neither one can I get on with. So my point is that what the hell is going on that even Trump can't hire a technical team that can actually roll this out? I mean, they've had months and months and millions of dollars. I rolled out my website with, fucking nothing,
What's your take on the reemergence of Q on Truth Social? That's gotten a lot of attention.
I don't know, because I can't get in there.
Well, my understanding is I can't either, by the way. I think I'm 180 something thousand. That was my wait list number.
I have 100,000. I mean, you're a well-known person on the circuit as well. See, we are key people. Wouldn't you think that Trump and his team, if they had half a brain, would give us special access and make sure we got on there?
Well, the thing that frustrates me the most is that there's no indication of, where you are in the queue. It just, the number stays the same. My number has stayed the same.
And this, 107, same problem with his website. Half the time I can't get on there. There's nothing to see. It's not up to date. It's the tech team seems completely lame in my view. I mean, I'm sorry. But the thing is that you have to be really you have to garner the best of the best. And then you have to actually perform. You have to actually show it. So a lot of what they do is, again, hiding their strengths, hiding their, their victories, if you will. And here we are with the biolabs, probably the same thing. They're doing everything behind the scenes. And like one day something's going to come forward that's unequivocal, and all of us wait for it, right? Like we wait for the second coming or something. It's insane.
Isn't that the truth?
Look, I love the white hats. I'm one of them, but I do have criticisms because we're trying to fight a war in which we get very little real support. Again,
I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy to criticize, because that's what keeps iron sharpens iron, as they say. I mean, if we're not going to criticize,
I have every right to do that.
Right.
I've been fighting this fight from day one in the public. I put my own life in danger. I've been threatened many times, nearly killed. So I have earned my right to criticize, to speak up. Who does Juan talk to? He talks to only people that will agree with him and have a incredible religious overlay. So they can't even, put a sentence together without using the word God. I mean, do you think God gives a shit whether you use his name or not? Does he have one name anyway? The devil has 20. I would assume God has, 50 million billion names. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's hypocrisy here. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. You can, why didn't Trump give us, I want a fucking gold pass to get into Truth Social.
You deserve one.
And you should have that as well.
I just came around. I'm a newcomer, but you definitely
whatever.
Should
No, fuck it. I'm just saying, we are the ones that garner the audience to support them. Okay. We put the information out. I work day in, day out, 24, like I said, all night, many nights. So what is it? What is it that we get no support? None. Okay.
Yeah.
Virtually none. The small group of us were invited to meet Juan, who I believe didn't even show up in his real, self. I mean, and again, he's working for whatever reason. I mean, this is their plan, I get it. So Juan's not supposed to come forward, even though he's JFK Jr. Do you know how that would change the lay of the land in our country to realize that JFK, who all of us remember, it's like our huge wound in the United States, that would unify us. He would be a unifier.
Oh, in an instant.
If you stood next to Trump and said, yeah, this is the guy, hello, he wants 80%. I wrote to him, I said, you want 80%, come forward. You got your 80%, boom.
Well, that was
overnight.
actually a question that was floating in my mind as you were talking, earlier actually, but I'm just going to ask you straight out, what percentage of the country do you think is actually at least somewhat awake at this point? If you had to guess, your best assessment of it, because people throw all kinds of numbers out there, well, and it's hard for me to tell. I live in a very liberal area, so
it's very, very difficult. Like I say, things could change in a heartbeat if if they would just come forward with, put their best foot forward instead of their worst, their least. Now, there have some reason for doing it this way. The AI and the generals have all decided they want to act meek and quiet and, barely say anything. Trump repeats himself over and over again and never says anything new, pretty much. Yeah, he's going to run in 2024, but he should be, coming forward right now. Juan made a huge case. And, I have to give Juan credit because he has been more courageous, more full of heart, and more, forthcoming in spite of all these, sort of holdbacks, if you will, than anyone representing the White Hats. He has laid himself on the line time and time again. He's actually sounds like, if you really listen, he's an absolute revolutionary at heart, and he's all about the people. Okay. So, but he gets ignored. How much stronger would he be if he were JFK Jr.? Can't they protect him the way they protect Trump? I mean, these are the questions, I don't expect you to have the answer. I don't have necessarily the answer, but I do think, we're getting to the point where we're going to have a world war. Okay. Are we just going to sit here and pretend that Biden's in charge of our military? Who is in charge of our military? If Trump is indeed, as Juan says, commander in chief, then he's going to have to act. And if the California National Guard is going to go over to Ukraine and make fools of themselves, I mean, seriously?
I wonder if there's going to be some sort of a scenario that unfolds where the military somehow is just completely put at odds with Biden over either his actions or inaction.
Well, hello, it should have already happened.
Well, I agree.
No, look, if they knew, listen, think about it logically, and no one does this. Juan says over and over again, what the military did is after he was sworn in on the 21st or 20th of January, they took close to 3 months. And in March of 2021, they came out and they said, we're not backing Biden, we're backing Trump because the election was stolen. That was the decision of the military, unless Juan's just like deluded and lying.
Am I correct that was the when the hotel prices shot up in DC in March all of a sudden, and there was a whole bunch of questioning about that? There was speculation that that's what was going on there, that Trump was getting sworn in by the military.
Maybe. I mean,
that Juan was there for that.
I don't know, those kinds of logistics. All I'm saying is what I want you to focus on is the idea. You see, the idea is powerful. If indeed our military has sworn him in, they have basically stood on the side of the election being stolen. And they have given the power of the military over to Trump. Now, at this point, we're about to enter a war. There's no two ways about it. They're building a case to get our country into that war, okay? As insane as it sounds, that means someone is going to put a green light and send our troops. It has to be Trump. It can't be Biden. And yet, the trouble is that I understand is our military is divided. There's a guy out there interviewed by, I guess it was Wayne Jett, who is saying that this general called David Gerber is basically established himself and says he's in charge of the military. He's a Marine. He's in charge of the Marines, perhaps. But like, who's asking for the Marines right now? No one. What about Space Force? What about Navy? What about, you know what I'm saying? Who's in charge of which groups? And the fact we are split in the country, our military is split. It's a perfect time for anyone to get away with anything, and that includes China. And don't you think they know that? Aren't they at least as smart as me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think is going to happen with China? You think they're going to strike Taiwan and it's going to be
yes,
for similar reasons to go after these types of targets?
has said that. I mean, listen, I listen to everything he says. He said unequivocally, I figure he knows. Now, I've got people that try to contact me and say, let's see who, Kim Gogan. She says, oh, Trump's not in charge of the military. She says, they're just members of the Black Sun, and they're all on board with whatever, diabolical. I mean, in other words, you've got certain people like that out there. She just interviewed Fulford, mm-hmm. And Fulford, hello, because we were the ones that flew to Japan to interview Fulford. I basically exposed the fact that he was taken on board by the Triad. He's still under their control. And Ben's a great guy, great-hearted guy. He's doing the best he can. But hello, again, you have to look deeper. And I'm just saying, if we're a divided country, how do we act internationally, let alone, in terms of the United States? Something has to happen to pull this country together. And these bioweapons, it's not whether they get in the hands of Putin. Putin is against child trafficking. There's a very good video that I've got on my Telegram channel by a local guy who basically said, look, we have internet, we have water, we have whatever we want. And he basically lays it out. And he says, Putin doesn't want to kill the Ukrainian people. He wants to keep them alive. He has a vested interest in keeping Ukraine intact. What he wants is to get rid of the neo-Nazis. What he wants is to get rid of the bioweapons. What he wants is to demilitarize a bunch of psycho Khazarians that basically, want to, kill and do everything that they normally do. So that's understandable. So, I maybe I'm being a really, really very.
No, this is important. This is your real take on it. This is.
But I just think that it's time for more of an open dialogue, not just, look, give up on the mainstream. We'll never get an open dialogue there. Duh. Mm-hmm. Tucker Carlson will kind of graze the issues, but he's limited. He's hobbled as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all left to the alternative to really step up and say, what the hell is going on? And one of the things that several people, people outside our country are looking at us going, your whole election was stolen. You've got a puppet government. You've got, you're completely hopeless. And they're looking at our country going, where are the American people? Like, what the fuck? What are we doing? Yes.
What do you think is going to happen with the trucker
are
conflict?
headed to Washington.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to go? The truckers, but that's not enough.
Do you think that's some sort of a trap they could be walking into there with false flags and things of that nature?
No,
To kind of demonize the
well, for
trucker
one
movement.
thing, look, it's a ghost town. Biden is not even there. I mean, the guy, he's operating out of other locations.
Yeah, Georgia,
and
primarily.
he's not even allowed in there, probably. I mean, again, divisions in the military, which part of the military is in charge of Washington, D.C., So
Now, do you have any insights on where that division is? Is it by branch or is it within every branch? There's division.
I think it's within every branch. There's a split. I do know that some of the generals are split. I don't know which ones are loyal to Trump and which ones aren't, but I know it's a problem. But I do know, believe I know, because look, if you understand the psychology, you said you wanted to talk to me about my video interview that I did with Nino way back.
Oh, yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet, but yeah, we can. I was very persuaded by that, yeah.
Maybe lighten things up a little bit.
Sure.
But the reason I bring that up is, again, because if you've got this guy out there telling you what the white hats are about, explaining what their next moves might be, explaining what the lay of the land is, because even that is a revolutionary move, to actually say, yes, there are bioweapons there. Yes, they're going in and rescuing children. Yes, they're doing this. Yes, they're doing that. Sure, he's just one guy. And right now, you don't know he's JFK Jr. Take everything he said for the last 2 years and realize that's JFK Jr. And he has...
This video, by the way, if you haven't seen Kerry's video with Nino, that was reposted to the Camelot website just recently, but it was an interview that took place last May. It's absolutely amazing, because I know during that interview, I could tell watching it that you were thinking the interview was going to be about something else, and it just kind of kept going in that direction.
Nino kind of hit me, came at me from the left side. So I just went with it. I just went with it. But actually, what you see in that interview is also a transformation in Nino, which is partially why it's so impressive, because he starts the interview thinking one way and ends the interview basically convinced that Juan is JFK Jr. Now, after that, he switches back, but I believe, I know that he did that because he wants to protect him. Look, what is my point? My point is that you've got, and he's not the only one, by the way. There are other hidden celebrities and people that, of note, who have gone into hiding, who have, in other words, we live a lie.
Can you give us any insight into that program? I've heard I heard it was called the Gone by the Wind program. Is that accurate? Or do you know anything about why all of these celebrities fake their death and how this ties into?
Well, it has everything to do. Well, there's two things going on. One is an individual such as, they said, Jim Kerry, who was part of the adrenochrome highway, what I call that, right? You know what I mean when I say that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm assuming the people listening know. Okay, Pizzagate, hello.
Oh yeah. My audience is pretty well aware of that stuff.
Yeah, I am assuming. So you got Jim Kerry, you get somebody who is like, how many indictments they said they have. By the way, I know somebody who tried to get in to see the indictments. And this is like a few years ago, right? Mm. And there's something like, I don't know, maybe even thousands, I forget how many. Anyway, the indictments are not allowed to be seen, even by lawyers. You got to understand this. Okay, this secrecy that the white hats are operating under is so pervasive. And my friend of mine, who is a Marine, who tried to get a lawyer to go in for him to access something, basically that guy was told, you could be court-martialed for trying to look at these indictments. I mean, you got to wrap your mind around how secret this is. So, okay. So
they control all the biggest, the key choke points of power, in essence, is kind of,
No, of the retaliation of their plan, okay, which involves people like Jim Kerry getting arrested, getting indicted, possibly given a trial or given, the opportunity, you turn state's evidence, as they say, or you face the consequences, right?
Mhm.
None of these people have been exposed. You haven't heard of it, right? So the point is they got on board. They joined the team. Okay, now Fauci has disappeared. Where the hell is he? Guantanamo Bay, probably. I mean, or they put him into hiding. Some say he's starting to turn state's evidence again on the COVID thing. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about if those, not just Juan, but if these other people, Michael Jackson, who they tried to kill, all these people who have evidence, to say nothing of Princess Diana, who they killed.
I was going to ask you about that one too.
Who
might actually be
I believe
Melania.
is married to Trump and has and the kid Barron is their child, looks just like her. This is considered to be, like, I'm considered to be fringe and way out there, et cetera, et cetera. What if everything I say is true? Not just here and now, but what if all the Camelot video information about off-planet races and deals with, abductees and taking, people off planet and so on. I mean, I've said so much, and I basically am like a library of whatever my whistleblower said, right? Mm-hmm. Coupled with my own intuitive, dealings and my own huge research background for many, many years, even before Camelot. So, what I'm saying is that we live in a world that's fake. Everything has been fake, and it's been fake for so long. And what I think is that there are not enough alternative journalists pushing and then gaining entrance in, like infiltrators, let's say infiltrators. Like you could say, well, maybe, and this is kind of sketchy, but maybe Tucker is an infiltrator. Maybe he went in to, News Corp with that idea that he would turn and basically turn against them at some point and reveal the real truth of something. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's in every walk of life, infiltration. Okay. So this is what should have happened already. And maybe those people are there as sleepers. Maybe the White Hat Network has extended to these places, but they're not letting the lid off. They're not revealing the truth. They're waiting and waiting and waiting. And our life gets worse.
That's like the billion-dollar question right there. What are they waiting for?
So how much? So you want to pay $10 for gas? Fine, go ahead. I mean, I don't know. See, from my point of view, this is not a life, this is not a near-death experience by any stretch. Not for me, not for people like that we know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, life is uncomfortable at times. It's not near death. The Ukrainians might say it's near-death experience for them, some Russian boys going to war, over there, trying to, get into the biolabs and fighting the neo-Nazis in the process. They might call it a near-death experience. What's near-death about it? I mean, some of these proclamations, as far as I'm concerned, that's not what's going on. We're not surprised by any of this stuff. Those of us that know, sure.
So when Juan talks about a
near-death experience is for the people who never knew anything and suddenly are going to learn something, but it hasn't happened. Hello, we've been out here, yelling at the top of our lungs. Even Juan, starts yelling on videos, right?
Oh yeah, it's funny.
No one hears him. No one over there is having a near-death experience. You asked me, the first question you said right there was, how much of the America is woken up? I don't know. Like, I'm not as, they do these polls and they think they've got 70 something %. So 70-30, right? In favor of Trump and all of that. Well, certainly Trump has a huge backing, and the evidence from just the election.
Yeah. I mean, 80 million people, right?
is substantial, but those
Sure.
are the ones that voted, not the ones that didn't vote.
Sure.
You know, what I'm saying is there's a substantial number of people that are still completely in the dark, completely in the dark. Do you know that Biden just extended the stupid mask
The mask
parameters
mandate.
for travel to April, some stupid date in April? The
Do you
whole
think there's any
COVID
reason
thing
they're
has been
planning that?
exposed. Let's look. One of the things about the masks, and keep this in mind, is that so far the whole COVID thing has actually gone by the wayside. But what hasn't happened, thanks to this war and redirection of the energy of the people and the mass media mind control, the real evidence that has been gathering all about the COVID thing being a hoax and a population elimination and you name it, and the fact that masks never worked from day one, the fact that Fauci should be guilty and hanged for crimes against humanity, none of that has come out, okay? And we're just sailing on by. And so the next pandemic they come out with, they're going to roll the masks out just like that. They're going to shut countries down. They're going to do it all again. And people are just going to fall for it just like they did the first time. Because it's not exposed. It has to be exposed, not just in the alternative, right? We already know. It
How do we
has to
break
be
that barrier?
overturned. It has to be overturned.
I think it's the
in
mainstream media.
Perception. It's absolutely there. They're the tool, they're the yelping dog for the cabal.
Until the mainstream media goes away, there's just that portion of the population that's never going to wake up. That's no matter what. I mean, the mainstream media could tell them that the sky is, purple or, polka dot yellow or whatever, and they're going to believe it. I mean, literally, they're that far gone. There is that portion of the population. So, I mean, do you think there's any kind of scenario where we're going to see the mainstream media get taken down?
Okay, but it's also law enforcement, and it's also the judges. Our courts are incredibly corrupt.
Oh yeah,
one of the
everywhere. It's pervasive.
The judicial is one of the most, in my view, corrupt areas of our entire, executive, branch, et cetera, government, whatever you want to call that. So that's got to be exposed. You can't, even Juan says this over and over again. He says, you can't get justice out of the justice system. And being trained as a lawyer, of course, that's a substantial statement if you knew that he was a lawyer. But so you just think he's a guy who was participated in takedown of the Soviet Union, as he says, which is the bio of Wayne Willett, who is, in essence, I believe, his sidekick. Basically, a guy who was assigned to protect him, probably, and then he devised this ingenious plan to basically look like his bodyguard instead of the reverse. Usually, they make the bodyguard look like the person, when you're a president or high-level person, right? Mm-hmm. So with this, he did the reverse. It was quite ingenious, really.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say, when I was listening to that, the interview we've been talking about, the one with you and Nino, I mean, I was very persuaded by what you had to say about the psychological profile, because I had heard a lot of the things about, the hands and the, the height and the voice cadence and all of those things. I had heard those. And I mean, prior to that, I mean, I had been most persuaded by the voice cadence, that was pretty revealing to me. But when you got into the psychological profile, I found that to be really fascinating. So you want to talk about that, or I know you don't like to rehash things, but no,
I mean, I'm willing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my. Can I do this? Oh, you have to give me permission, and you don't know how to do it. I can't.
I think I can. That I think I know how to do. Try it now.
Awesome. Okay, good. So it's because I have everything on my website, so I just want to show people.
Sure.
So I do have this here, wherever it is. So hold on. I've always got this stuff. Here's my Nino thing. And so what happened when I did the show with Nino is after that, people out in the community started sending me their evidence that Juan was JFK. And I have a huge support system out there. So they sent me all kinds of really good stuff. So obviously this is the interview that I did. This is what this montage that I made. It's kind of sloppy, but nonetheless, these are the different disguises that Juan has worn in theory. Okay. He was in a witness protection program of some kind, but probably a pretty unique one. I mean, after all, keep in mind that this is the son of JFK Jr. Of JFK. So why, you've got to say to yourself, he was protected up until a certain age. I think he was in his teens by the Secret Service of the United States. He was going to be read in to how the inner workings of the secret government, in essence. And you can bet that he had mentors that brought him along. Okay. Mm-hmm. That he didn't get, he didn't almost die in a plane accident just because he went off with, his wife and her sister blatantly without a thought in the world. Okay. Like people like to paint him, which is so insane. Growing up the way he did, if you've read one book about him, you see that he was basically dogged by the Secret Service in everything he did and everywhere he went from from the day he was born, probably. Mm. So here he is. He has these characteristic mannerisms that I don't care what he's dressed as, he often does. Okay. And he does it all the time on the video. All you can see is his legs, right? On these. And yet he uses his hands in certain ways that are very distinctive, and I'm not going to explain everything down to the last, but here we've got a Secret Service guy. Then again, you have to know that the Tom Cruise mask thing, I did investigation. I talked to secret guys who use this kind of disguise to say, can it really be done? Is it really hard to tell? And was told unequivocally, yes. And Sean David Morton, who a lot of people know, as I've said before, he told me he did this and his family did not recognize him. Okay. And knowing Sean, that's for sure. That would be exactly the kind of thing Sean would do.
Can I ask a quick question about the mask? How did they do the voice? Is there a voice modulator that's part of that as well?
I don't know that part, but I do know, but in my view, the voice, actually JFK's, you have to understand that he didn't come forward until on Field McConnell's show, I think was one of the first places he came forward. He had a scratchy voice. It's not really that different than his regular voice. He has an accent. He tries to have an accent, like a cowboy accent. But one of the, there's so many little clues. Okay. So when he was
he's actually just doing this manually, so organically is a better way to say. He's not expert.
No, look, I'm sure he took some lessons beyond the lessons he already had. He was a trained actor. He's an excellent actor. He learned how to do disguises while he was outrunning the press when he was still alive. This is all documented. Okay. Mm-hmm. On top of it, like I was trying to say, is that when he was young, one of his big experiences was to go live on a dude ranch kind of thing in, I don't know, Montana or wherever he was sent. Mm-hmm. And that would have shaped him with the cowboy boots, the whole outfit. I mean, this would be perfect for him. True. And it's also part of his psychology. Okay. The American West, you just have to go, down the road. But at any rate, you can kind of see this. So what I wanted to show you was, okay, look, do the analysis on his handwriting. This is 107, and this is JFK Jr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at that.
J.
Yeah.
Look, he hides in plain sight. He doesn't even try that hard. Okay. And yet people think it's like, oh no, he can't be him. It's like they're so fucking, I don't know, brain dead or something. Now, this is the biggest reveal.
Well, it's like they keep saying, I keep getting the comments, oh, it looks nothing like him. Well, it's not supposed to. I mean, if it did,
no,
it's like,
that's not true. I'll give you the proof of that. Let me see if I have to go. I guess it's not on this part. It's on my other one. Okay, so hold on a second, but let me finish this. So there's lots of little clues here, including his name. By the way, this is so obvious. 107. Juan is John. O is Jackie O.
Yep.
And Savin is the Savin Hill Library that was dedicated to his father, that he was involved in the dedication ceremony.
Yep.
No, if you're going to name yourself and hide, wouldn't you name yourself, I don't know, some weird name? But you're not going to name yourself with all those clues right in the name. I mean, that in and of itself should just clinch the deal.
It's in plain sight. I mean, it's right there, folks.
But he understands the psychology of doing that. Okay. But it's also part of his deal, because in my view, this is a man who he always wanted to serve the people. He even did these kinds of things before he died, public works kind of things. Then right before he died, he was actually hiring investigative journalists to expose the fact that his father was killed by Bush Sr. in control and a bunch of, whoever else. That's right before he died. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you think this guy didn't have a thought about that they're going to try to kill him? His mother drummed that into his head for his whole life. Now take a look at this. This is a video that this kind of smart guy did. And I've always been waiting for this, by the way. So when this came out, I was like, finally, because I always figured, the one telltale thing would be he has only his boots, but he walks around in front of these windows on the Trump Tower, and there's going to be a reflection. That would be the way. And sure enough, take a look at this and really look at it. I don't know if you can see it as well as I can, but go get the video, have the link on my page and everything. Here's his face. There's the head, the hairline. Check this out. This is his face. Then it's cut off here. He says there's a phone in the way. That's the person who made this says. Here's the stomach, Here's the some kind of belt or something on his belt as well. Here's his legs and his pants. Come on, this is him. He's on a show when this is taken. Okay, this is from a video of the show. It's him.
Was he even that? He actually looks thinner in that. Is that?
Of course he looks thin.
So he wasn't in disguise. That's what you're saying. No,
he's not in disguise. This is him.
Wow.
I mean, he's exposed. This is the video where you can watch it. See if you disagree with me. I don't care.
Well, no, I wasn't disagreeing. I was just trying to wrap my brain.
No, I mean, look, it's fine with me. I don't, I really could care less who believes me, who doesn't.
Well, I have to be honest with you. If I didn't, I would tell you. And I'm more persuaded than not. I mean, really, there's just so much. Kid by the side of the road. I mean, the famous, video of him saluting on the side of the road, his father's casket.
There's so much to it that goes with it. Okay. There's a lot on this page. Okay. And someone else did this, a numerological thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then I said that only a celebrity would think that showing just his boots in a video would be enough for people to, I mean, it's a psychological thing. And he drives around in red hot cars. Okay. Now, is that person trying to hide? Seriously? No.
Certainly not incognito. That's for sure. It's just the opposite.
No, he is actually torn. He's tortured. He wants to connect with the American people. It's his destiny. You got to understand. He wants to avenge he even stated unequivocally, he was going to avenge his father's death. He has a mission, is my point. Okay. This person has had to live all these years in secret, along with his wife and her sister, and try to protect them and all that kind of thing. But the reason I came forward sort of stressing all these different things is because, as far as I'm concerned, this is a soul crying out to be heard and to be seen. Otherwise, he would have named himself 107, number one. He never would be driving around in incredibly hot cars. Someone said to him on a video, "How many cars do you have, Juan?" He said, he laughs and he goes, "I don't know." I don't know. This is the son of a very rich family. Hello. This is the son of the Kennedy. This is not just some guy who walked in off the street, trained to be in special forces, had some acting training, etc. That's Wayne Willett. Okay. Wayne Willett, by the way, I've met him in person, has blue eyes. Now, maybe they were contact lenses and maybe that was one. I don't know. Okay. But it seemed like that was Wayne Willett when I met him just at the Trump Tower just recently at the Double Down.
Did you actually hear the comments that Juan made recently?
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were done. You weren't done. Go ahead.
No, I just was going to say I met him a year before that when he invited the press, certain groups of the alternative press. And I have a picture that he won't allow people. He actually, we had like, oh, you know, there's a lot to this, but I don't say a lot of it because I do want to protect him to a certain degree. But we had a screaming fight over a picture of Wayne Willett or him or John in disguise, okay, at this get together a year ago, not the Patriot Dead Bill down, but a year before that, you know, it was actually right now. What are we in March? It was March. Right at the end of February last year when I first met him or a version of him. And we were at this woman's house where they held this party and Nino was there and all these other, you know, Jaco and everybody, you know, a lot of the usual suspects.
This is in Las Vegas, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this was a private party at a woman's house. He came and gave a speech, you know, so he was in a living room with us in a very close proximity, small group of people, very luxurious, gorgeous house. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to the crowd and I met him and I don't know, when I got there, and you know, I'm very psychic. You know, people could say, you know, oh yeah, you think you're very psychic. But it's been right. You know, it saved my life. It's actually been, you know, right often enough for me to pay close attention to the way my reaction to things. Mm-hmm. So, but when I couldn't look at his face. I knew something was wrong. And the funny thing is that I was sitting on the edge of the couch and he was just like a couple arm lengths away from me giving his speech. And I am sitting there like this. And a friend of mine, which I didn't know, took a picture in which they took a picture of him and me and a couple other people that were on the couch with me. Mm-hmm. That picture went out. I put it out actually right after he went on the Double Down because I figured, okay, he's out. He's in, you know, it's quasi disguise, but it looks much closer to the way he really looks. So I figured, okay, you've come out. Let's put the picture out there. I get a call immediately, take it down. He called every single person that had that picture, because other people did, and told them to take it down right away. Oh. Now, I ask you, if he isn't who I say, then why does he give a shit? Because nobody gives a fuck who Wayne Willett is. Yes, maybe some enemies, but if that's all he's worried about, they already know he's been out for 2 years under that name, you know? Anyway, it just goes on and on. Look, you can tell he's got a mask on. You can tell his hairline. There's one kind of type of hair here. This is one kind of very good opportunity where Nino just recently went to visit him at the Trump Tower. Now, Nino knows the real truth. Okay. Not to put any pressure on Nino.
Well, I mean, I've never talked to Nino before, so it certainly wouldn't come from me, but so he's read in now. He knows the truth.
He definitely knows. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So there's more to this. You know, I don't need to go much. I could get my Double Down thing. I guess it looks like it went off.
This is fascinating for me. I mean, I think this is just fascinating because, like you, I mean, I recognize the gravity of what this means. The fact not only that he's
of what it means. That's what it's really all about. It's what it means for the country and for Trump. Okay, what it means for all of us is like major. Now, I was going to try to see if I can get. I don't know if it'll come up if I do one. Let's see. So
the picture he wanted you to take down was just a picture of you and him, you said, in Vegas. Did I get the whole thing?
It's not just me and him. It's him standing up giving a speech. It's me sitting on the couch listening, going like this. And what I'm thinking that exact moment the photo was taken is something's wrong. It's not right. This guy is, so I knew intuitively, I knew he was in disguise. Okay. That I was just not meeting, but I was having a terrible time figuring out whether it was actually John in disguise or just a guy in disguise.
So it was the look on your face that kind of, that he was like,
Well,
uh-oh, take that down.
It's just a moment. Okay. It's just a moment. But
Okay.
I'm not telling you the real clues there. Okay. So
Sure.
I'm bringing you up to speed on what I've already put out there. I'm not putting out new stuff. So, okay, this is the double down. Okay. I did a video about the double down. You can watch it and see what I had to say right when I got back from the recent double down, which was like, I can't remember when it was. Was it September? Yeah, I think October of 2021. So it was not that far ago. Okay, this is him getting photographed all over the fucking place. He spent hours signing autographs with people. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is JFK Jr. This is him. Okay, so then they do like profiles. There's videos out there. I put them on my Telegram as usual. There's great stuff out there about it. Okay. And I met this guy. Okay, so the Wayne Willett, there, at least the way I think. Now, John he's got a super high IQ. He's absolutely brilliant. And there's been like a recent video interview he did with, what are their names? The flyover people, right?
Flyover conservatives.
Yeah, there's one just kind of recently, not super, I don't know when it was, but he starts spouting off something about, God, I forget what he was talking about. But you can tell that the guy is first of all, he's a guy who spent a tremendous amount of time alone until the last 2 years. Now he's, already famous again, right?
Yeah.
In spite of himself.
That's true.
And he's constantly traveling and doing all that. But believe me, this guy is very well educated, well studied. This book that he supposedly wrote, and he talks in kind of cowboy slang. Look, he's an actor. He did it really well. He even wrote it into the style. The style of the book is in the way he talks. But behind it all, you can see that all the training as an actor, as a lawyer, as a son of John F. Kennedy, of all the things he would have learned along the way. It's all there. It's all there. So,
well, I love it. I think this is absolutely great.
I guess that kind of covers it. There, you could read books.
We could talk about it for hours. I mean, really.
I had this guy. He's an author who wrote a book about JFK that didn't get noticed too much, I don't think, but it's excellent rundown of why, basically, how the sort of so-called death happened, one scenario, and how witnesses everywhere wouldn't talk. And it's fascinating. And so for me as an investigative reporter, I saw clues there. And the difference is, and then I had the author on my show and I said, look, you lay out this excellent case, but by the way, the case you're laying out absolutely supports the idea that John was not in that airplane and that was staged by the military. Yeah, and he actually agrees with me. So if you want to listen to that interview, it's fascinating. They actually, when he was working on this book on JFK Jr., they poisoned him. He almost died. Now you got to ask yourself, listen, if the guy's dead, why do they give a shit? Ask yourself. Why would they attack somebody like that? There's just so much more to this, but I'm not talking about that stuff. So anyway, they have done, there's a whole photo analysis of him. This is when he's all puffed up. He puffed up his cheeks. He's got a big stomach. This was the Patriot double down. This is his outfit. But this, if you actually take JFK's face, and they have,
Yeah.
and put it next to this,
Yeah, I can see it.
the nose is very unique and very, he has a beautiful nose. It's all about the bloodline. And the funny thing is, the Wayne Willett nose, that I'll just give people a clue. The guy who or the disguise that he wears is Wayne Willett. The nose is nothing even remotely like the nose he has at the Double Down and that he has in real life.
So when
That
you
should
met him,
tell you everything.
did he have the right nose, or was it the other nose?
When I met him, I don't want to go into the whole story at the Double Down because that was so convoluted, and it looks like they actually tried to fuck me over and have him go on stage at the Double Down when I wasn't there.
Really?
Yeah. And other things happened. I'm not going to go into it now, but there'll be a time in the future to go into all of it. And I haven't told you that a lot of this stuff that happened to me was even before I ever went to the press where I was, meeting him at that house. Mm-hmm. A year before that, in April, I had this incredible night of dreams. The whole night I was with John F. Kennedy Jr. and Trump. Okay. The first half of the night I was with John F. Kennedy Jr. in social situations. The second part was he and I were with Trump, and Trump was working. We were doing these, I'm not a mainstream political person, but we were getting together these brochure type things for Trump running in 2024. This dream was in April of 2020, before he ever, quasi won the election. So I have prophetic dreams. So I knew then my dreams were telling me, no two ways about it, because of that whole night of dreams, which was unlike almost any other time I've had dreams in my whole life, that Trump was running in 2024. So I've always known, and I told John this, and I told other people, and they would go, in the early days when I first said that, they would go, oh no, don't talk about 2024. He's running in 2020. He's going to win and everything's going to be fine. And I just said, well, okay. But the thing about my dreams is I cannot influence my dreams. I can say, oh, I'd like to dream about thus and so, but it never happens. I don't know. My brain's not like other people's. For whatever reason, I can't, it happens when I have a dream that's prophetic. It just shows me it. And then it's like a film strip. And then it happens, it could happen years later. But I've had enough of that go on where it actually works out. Now, what are we hearing? Here we are, 2022, the clock is ticking. He's not come back. He's going to run in 2024. He's telling people now. It was in my dream. Okay. Now, I did a show with Michael Shrimpton. Maybe you heard about it. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh yeah, I watched it. Yep.
Okay. At the end, Michael tells, without me even asking him, he tells how, as a barrister, an English barrister, which is a judge, very high level, he tells how he thinks Trump is coming back into office. Okay. He thinks Biden's going to be impeached over the bioweapons labs and all the, money that he and his son made off of Ukraine and the child trafficking, et cetera. Number one, he thinks Biden is going down. Then he thinks Kamala is implicated because of her being a vice president of Biden. So she's going out. She's going to be impeached. Then he thinks, the Republicans in the midterms are going to win the House. So there will be a Republican Speaker of the House at that point. That person, according to Michael Shrimpton, he says, is going to, for 24 hours, take the presidency because he's next in line. Then he's going to appoint Trump as his VP. And then he's going to step down and Trump is going to take the office. And he said by March of next year, which is 1 year from today, Trump will be back in office, and that he won't be he will be able to run in 2024 because he will only have a partial term. And according to the Constitution, you have to have 2 full terms to not be able to run.
Mm.
That's from a very educated, person as to what, the law. And he's also, he's always been very involved in the whole world of intelligence. So I think it's great what he laid out. Juan has never laid that out like that. I don't know if that's how it's going to happen. Like I said, when we started the conversation, I'm very concerned. How is Trump going to not come forward as commander in chief? How are we going to war if we're going to war? How is he going to stop Biden? How much bloodshed? What kind of craziness? Because if we go to war in Ukraine, we're opening the door for war with China. And we're also going to be sending stuff over there, leaving us defenseless, on top of the fact that we have a revolution, if you want to call it that, happening in our own country at this time.
Well, I think there are a lot of people out there that are clinging to this, this faith in the idea that the White Hats are winning this battle, this war. I think people are all over the place in terms of what their assessment is. But I mean, if we end up spiraling into a world war type of situation, I mean, I think at that point, it would seem to me like all bets are off. I don't think anybody would really take seriously the idea that there's any kind of a plan that the White Hats had to avoid that type of situation. I mean, my understanding had always been that we were going to get very close, like to the precipice of destruction, but we weren't going to actually go over the edge. That's obviously my hope and prayer, as it is everybody's. But what do you think? I mean,
well,
do you
I think the Trump card is the Trump. I think that Trump's relationship with Putin is probably the way in which we would achieve peace in Ukraine. So I think that's going to be the key. I would like to see the White Hats come forward with some real tangible information that would, yes, change the whole world. As Juan says, is supposed to happen in the next 3 weeks. Okay, but I'm not holding my breath over that.
Yeah,
because
I'm not either. At this point, I'm not holding my breath over anything.
It's been too many times that they promise something so earth-shattering, something that the rest of the world everyone is going to notice, and it's going to change everything. I would love it, but I'm just, I'm doubtful. So
yeah, well, I'm skeptical as well. I mean, I think everybody out there who's, I think somewhat level-headed is going to be skeptical at this point, because so many days have come and gone. And the rationales that we've been given, I think, have been somewhat satisfactory. But as you pointed out, as this gets more and more dire and we don't see the military, really stepping up and fulfilling its duty, it's not really even just the way we look at it. It's not a question of, should we do this? Should we not do this? I mean, of course, that's what it comes down to. But in my mind, it's very clear this is their duty to protect us, from this, this invading force. This was a digital invasion, as it's very clear, attack on our country. And here we are. We spent a great amount of time talking about the law of war. I've done podcasts on it, talking about the devolution work that Patel Patriot has put out there, and talking about all these different reasons during this 1 year period why we weren't seeing action. And then it seemed, and Juan, of course, talked a lot about that. And it seemed as if that, we were kind of crossing this legal precipice, as he put it, or, everything was going to hinge upon that 1 year mark. And, here we are when we're in March, and, it's been more than a month. And I think that, again, people are starting to scratch their head and say, what's going on here? I mean, not that they ever really stop, but I think for a while there, at least I had somewhat of a sense of satisfaction. Oh, okay, maybe this is the reason why we've had to wait up until this point. And maybe now we're going to really see things accelerate. And, it kind of seems like we're seeing things happen, but we haven't really seen that big moment, or however you want to characterize it.
That's right.
I guess that breakthrough moment, or, But anyway, we've been on for a while now. I didn't really specify, how long I was going to have with you. So I want to make sure I'm, respectful of your time here. I could talk to you.
Yeah,
forever.
thank you. Well, I think it's enough in one video to.
Yeah, we can kind of rewind things down. I was thinking the same thing. It's been about an hour and a half, and I could go on and on, but we'll save it for another one. Hopefully I can get you back soon. We can touch base soon and set something up if you're game.
Yep, I am.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you. I really do appreciate it, Kerry. You're amazing. And I love, getting, I love the controversy. I love spicing it up. And, that's really, to me, that's what the truth is all about. It's, it's not just sitting back and being afraid to ruffle some feathers. I mean, I think that's kind of our job here is we have to do that. We're doing it with love and respectfully, but, at the same time, we can't forget what our real purpose and mission is.
Questions have to be asked. And I do think, my challenge is out to the white hats, and, step up, support those of us that are supporting you, and, and be willing to answer good questions. Don't be like your predecessors, in office, right? This canned idea of the way press conferences have always been held with only a select group of the mainstream press. I mean, these kinds of, it's systemic. The way our country is run has been a fraud and it's systemic. It's system-wide. It's built into the systems. It's built into the judiciary. It's built into the laws that were passed to allow for these inequities to happen and these injustices, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's time to turn it around. And the only way you can do it is by just doing it, so.
Absolutely. And, we have to be at the, the forefront. That's why, one of the things I love about you, you've been at the tip of the spear, and you continue to be, which is just amazing. So thank you for the honor of having you on my show. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the good questions and, for rolling with me.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for listening. God bless, Godspeed. I'll be back soon. Patriot out.